I just want to set a couple of categories out on the table, which are very helpful. I think they're from C.S. Lewis. He classifies three main forms of what he calls natural human loves or natural affections. The first one is he calls affection, and it's based fundamentally on the attachment, and particularly to parents. But he uses it metaphorically to refer to all things that we become familiar with. We potentially develop a bond of what he calls affection, just because they're familiar. So even people or things or places that we might not otherwise be drawn to, if there's enough time, we might develop nostalgia and love in that sense. But there's nothing intrinsically necessarily good about that. The second category is the category of friendship, and he points out friendship is the least biological of all loves. It actually, you might differ, but he would say that it fulfills no necessary biological or survival function, at least the way that Aristotle and others understood. Friendship in the bond is actually a shared perspective or outlook on something, shared view, shared value in some activity. The third category of natural loves is eros, which he defines as the state of being in love. I'll just point out for now that Plato's concept of eros didn't just have to do with romantic love or sexual attraction, that sort of thing, but Plato thought that eros recognizes the beauty in some object or person, and it's that beauty that attracts us and calls forth or evokes, our love. So eros, though, is intrinsically it's a matter of it's a desire for possession because of the beauty in the object. It's a desire for personal possession and personal fulfillment. So eros has been understood to be essentially egocentric. It's about fulfilling some void in myself, through that. And then lastly, and this is what's maybe, it is what's most distinctive about the Christian viewpoint, there is divine love, which gets translated as agape in the New Testament. And so what's interesting in particular about this is that, as C.S. Lewis puts it really well, he says, the natural human loves are not sufficient. They're not sufficient to sustain any relationship, any of the natural loves for family, friends, for even romantic partners or whatever. And he says they're not able, those relationships won't run on themselves or won't be nourished, because he points out there's something naturally unlovable in each one of us. He says you might as well ask people to love the taste of rotten cheese or the sound of a mechanical drill, especially if it's a dentist drill that's nearing your mouth and that sort of thing. So he says the thing about that distinguishes divine love, agapic love, which is described in 1 Corinthians 13, etc., is that fundamentally it is love for the unlovely. It is what enables us to love and show forbearance for and forgiveness for the unlovely. When there isn't a natural bond, there isn't any natural quality in the object or in the person that would otherwise attract us. And so my last and final point for now is simply that if we want to know what the perfection is of all the natural human loves as well as divine love, we need to look to Jesus Christ, who shows us. We see that in the Gospels, but then in particularly in the way that he responded to his tormentors and torturers and executioners. In particular, he embodies all the qualities not only of 1 Corinthians 13, but of Romans 12 as well. And so I will just say, maybe just to throw that out there, this is a definition from the philosopher Dallas Willard, which I find extremely helpful in isolating, putting the finger on what is agapic love, divine love, that makes it different from human loves. He says, Willard says, agapic love is distinguished from desire, and it's located in the will leaving room for desire and feeling to play an appropriate role in love without making them the heart of the matter. Agapic love is not action, not even action with a special intention, but it's a source of action. And he says, agapic love is not desire and not delight. Desire and feelings generally have a different nature than agapic love. They fall into the domain of impulse, not that of choice. They aim at their satisfaction, not at what is better and possibly best. Choice considers alternatives and weighs what is best. If its vision is broad enough, it will find what is good and right. The larger holistic perspective, right? If it is surrendered to God, united with His will, it will be able to do what is best. That is the nature of agapic love. It seeks what is best. That is why it enables a person to refrain from hating their enemy, which they might very well want to do, and to seek what is good for them along with all others concerned. And maybe lastly, one other really helpful description that he gives is the agapic love of which Paul and Jesus spoke arises, which characterizes Corrie ten Boom as well in her ability to forgive the German concentration camp guard who came over and shook his hand and said, "It's so great that you're speaking and traveling and talking about the message of God's forgiveness." She said she was unable to meet his hand, but so she prayed, "Lord, I can't do it, help me." And she found her hand rising and being able to extend her hand to him. So agapic love is something which involves the orientation of the whole self toward what is good and right, and something which has amazing supernatural power for good as it indwells the individual.